First of all, people in places like Venezuela, most people don't have a bank account. If you are activists, even less. You cannot open a bank account, you cannot keep a bank account, and if you have a bank account, it's almost a surveillance mechanism. That's taking this. Second, NGOs, they cannot have bank accounts. You cannot open a PayPal, you cannot open any kind of regulated financial instrument because of bad regulation in the US,
yeah,
to put it simply. To put it simply, Thomas was mentioning bad regulation that makes everybody extremely risky for banks and financial institutions. Anti-money laundering regulation, know your customer regulation. These regulations that are aimed to improve people's life and to protect financial integrity, what they're really causing is extreme problems for society. They are financially excluding people. People from Venezuela, they will never meet the standards to even open a PayPal account. It's extremely difficult, even open a bank account, even less. Humanitarian organizations that work in places like Venezuela and are based in the US all the time have financial problems. Activist organization, humanitarian aid organization, foundations, they have all these problems. So the only way, actually, to have total freedom and to move your money and to protect your money is Bitcoin. This is something that for many of you is understandable, but imagine when I talk this with politicians, with policymakers. We had met in the Department of Commerce, we had met with the Treasury, with the State Department, in the European Parliament, everywhere. And the perception they have about Bitcoin is completely different than the reality that we bring to them. They think that Bitcoin is used by a minority of people, either, let's say, financial speculators or even people who do illegal activities. And what we tell them is that the vast majority of the world is actually a silent majority of unbanked people. People don't have bank accounts. This is the reality. Let's set aside political people. In a place like, let's say, Latin America, let's talk about not Venezuela, let's talk about Ecuador, a democratic country. Official statistics, you have only 40% of people with bank accounts. But if you see bank usage, people who use bank accounts for a transaction, it goes down to 12%. People don't have bank accounts because they don't meet the standards. And I have interviewed many people. So let's say that you are a farmer that never in your life have done any proper paperwork. Now they are asking financial institutions to do even digital kind of paperwork. It's just impossible for people to comply on this. Yeah. And in the US, the problem is that many minorities, for example, vulnerable communities, they cannot open a bank account because the risk profile becomes too high for financial institutions. Immigrants, very difficult for them to open a bank accounts. I mentioned non-profit organization, but I also want to mention entrepreneurs working on cutting-edge technologies. They themselves had difficulties opening bank accounts. Opening bank accounts or also doing more sophisticated financial transactions because of bad regulation proposed by the US especially.
Yeah, I mean, and it's by design, right? Because not only do you have high barriers and, you know, a lack of creditworthiness because the bar is so high that only like politicians and rich people can open bank accounts, you know, you just don't have the infrastructure either, right? But Bitcoin fixes that. And you know, the biggest opposition was also cut off, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So it's just like, I mean, it's obviously happening to people who push back the most.
Yeah, like the opposition, they cannot have bank accounts. It happens in other countries, and it has happened in democracies. We saw the case in Canada, for example, with the people that were protesting the Trudeau government, and the bank accounts were closed. So this is a situation that can happen in any country. It can also happen because you can lose your bank access not only through direct government exposure, but it can also happen through other mechanisms that even can even be created by private actors. Yeah. And that's even more complex, but also Bitcoin solved that issue.